hopefully. And I will, yeah, the password is here. And I will type it in, but I will not say it out loud. Yeah, well, it's not there. Okay, so now we're logged in. And remember I made a Scratch directory? And I'm suggesting that everybody make their own subdirectory of the Scratch directory. And inside of there, they install a copy of Sage. And I already did this myself. And the way I did it is I typed tar xvf ... Actually, I didn't type v, because that would be too verbose, like that. So if you type that and wait about 1 minute, it will extract a complete install of Sage in your directory. And then you can use that and change it however you want. It's your own complete copy of Sage. Okay? I'm not going to do that. By the way, I'm using the bash command prompt here. And a comment in bash, it's kind of like you're typing commands into Sage, but it's bash. It's a different programming language. But the comment is a hash, just like in Python. So when I do that, nothing happens. But if you get rid of the hash and type this, then it will extract Sage in your directory. Okay, and it'll have a very long file name. I moved it to be something shorter. Change into the directory that you extracted Sage to, and then you type the command here. This is just a little alias I set up myself, and what that does is it sets up your path so that when you type the word Sage, this directory right here is the one is the Sage that gets run. So no matter where you are now, if you change into any other directories, move around, whatever, it'll always run the Sage that's in this directory. Yes?
Is there a way to go up a directory?
Yes. So in bash or in the command prompt, the way that you, or in Unix in general, the way that you move around from one directory to another is you say cd and then you give the name of a directory. However, there are two special directories in Unix. Dot is the current directory and ... is one directory up. So if I do cd dot, I'll go nowhere at all. If I do cd ... I go up one directory. And with just that information, which I just told you, cd and the directory name, and the fact that double dot means the directory above you, you now can navigate around to any directory in the file system. Okay? And there are a lot of directories on this file system. If you want to start looking around, you'll discover that. Okay, I'm going back into the Sage directory. And now inside of the Sage directory, and by the way, if you extract Sage, you get a directory with these files and directories inside of it. And in most Sage documentation, the directory you get is referred to as Sage root. So if you ever see Sage_root, and you will, refer to explicitly, it's referring to this directory hierarchy, this sort of top level of the directory hierarchy. By the way, I just recalled that somebody had asked about Windows, and I have an answer here. There's a program called PuTTY, which is a free Telnet SSH client, and you can download it and install it under Windows. And I don't know what all this stuff is, but in case, if you go to this website, under Windows, it gives you a nice way of using SSH. So under Linux and OS X, you just type SSH, as I did. Under Windows, you'd enter the login name and the computer, and then click a button, and you get a prompt. You get a shell. After that, everything's exactly like what I'm doing. There was a hand?
Yeah, I tried installing it yesterday, and it works, but you have to find a different version of it, I think, because
yeah, it does say there's something here.
yeah, like the guy was lazy and didn't want to do by 64.
Oh, so it's 32-bit only?
Yeah, so yeah,
Okay.
their version should work 64-bit up. Yeah,
Yeah, mine works on 64.
It's Windows. Everything just works. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So anyways, that's the answer for Windows. Okay. Back to our console. Now what we're going to do is change something in Sage, and I did exactly this for you before, but I'm going to do it again more slowly and with more explanation. So I just changed into the subdirectory Sage devel Sage. Okay. So I started at Sage root, and I typed the cd command a couple of times, and now I'm in a subdirectory devel Sage. And if I type ls, which is the second shell command that I've now shown you, cd was the first one, and tar was another, so I guess it's the third, then you'll see a list of additional directories. Some of these are files that things that end in .py. and some of them are directories. Most of them are directories. And they have the source code of Sage in them. Now, if you're using Sage and you come across a function that you're interested in, so let's switch to a web browser and start using Sage. So somebody name a function in Sage of interest. Flatten. Is that in Sage?
Yeah, it is.
Aha! That would make that problem easy. So apparently there's a flatten function in Sage. And when I type double question mark, it shows me the source code for the function. But one other critical thing is it shows me the location of, it shows me what file the source code is in. So if you look at this file, this is not exactly, unfortunately, currently the file that you want to edit. There will be a time in the future when it is the file you want to edit, but right now it's not. What happens with Sage right now, and this will change eventually, there is a whole bunch of source code that we've been looking at in the devel Sage directory. And if you modify any of this code, when you type sage-br, what it does is it notices any modifications. If the code is Cython code, it will apply the GCC compiler in the Cython program to compile it. And anything that changes it then copies it over to something called the site packages directory, and that's where it's run from. Technically what's happening is Python setup py install gets run every time you type sage-br. So the file that gets listed here, that's the file in the site packages directory. This is not the one you want to edit. In fact, if you edit this file, and then you somehow realize you really should be editing the file over here, what will happen is your edits over there will get copied over, which is not good. I remember a Sage Days last summer where Robert Miller, one of the very senior Sage developers, was going crazy running around trying to explain to people that they do not edit the file in the site packages directory, they should edit the file that's over here in the devel Sage directory. So just keep that in mind. If you followed what I did already, you would have already noticed to do that. So the upshot of all of this is you look at everything after site packages, namely sage misc flatten.py. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to find that file by using the cd command, and then we're going to edit it using the pico command. And we're going to change something in it. Okay, so now, hey, nice. So apparently you can use talk and other commands to send messages to yourself. Okay, so cd, so actually what am I going to type exactly if I want to get to that file? Cd what? Misc, exactly. So I type cd misc, and I type ls, that shows everything in the directory, and I forget what the name of the file was that I want to look at. Oh, it's flatten.py, woo, thanks. Now I'm going to use pico flatten.py. So pico is, as its name suggests, a very little editor. It's very simple, doesn't do all kinds of complicated things. But the key thing about pico is that every command you need to know about is just listed at the bottom in order to use it. Okay, if you want to exit, you type Control-X. If you want to get help, you type Control-G. If you want to write out the file to disk, you type Control-O, etc. So there's not very many things. You don't have to remember anything at all except look at the bottom. Yeah?
You're not going to be picky for like set with VI already though and use that.
Fine, use VI.
Okay.
It's not going to make any difference at all. I'm not asking you to turn in a
Just-
screencast.
Okay.
I won't even know how you edit your file.
Okay.
Yeah. use ed. Yeah. So let's make a dumb change. So I'll make the stupidest change possible. Print, hi mom. Okay, so that's really getting lame, but okay, so then I hit Control-X, save the buffer, write it out to that file, and now I'm done. So I've edited the file using pico. So let me just make a little table of the commands that I've mentioned so far. ls, tar, cd, pico. I don't think I've mentioned anything else yet. Okay. And now, if we type sage-br, just as I mentioned over here, it'll notice that that one file, flatten.py, is changed, and it copies it over to the site packages directory. Okay? And now, if we try out the flatten command, we should see the modified behavior. Boom, it worked. Okay? So now we've made the change to the Sage library. The next step, and not only will you be able to watch this online, In case you can't, I have also put kind of step-by-step what we're doing. So we've saved the changes and tested using sage-br. We've just completed step 5 above. Now we're going to type some commands that will show us what we've changed and allow us to check those into our local Mercurial repository. So I'm going to quit out of Sage. So if I type hg, for example, status, that shows me all files that I've changed. The revision control system that Sage uses is called Mercurial, and on the command line, instead of having to type out Mercurial, you type out just hg, which is the chemical symbol for mercury. So it's that's why it's such a short command name. So this hg status says these are the list of files that you've modified. So I've modified that file. I'm going to make it a little smaller because it's kind of ridiculous. You can also do, I'm going to change the prompt, I think, because it's getting really annoying that it's so long. Okay, so I set a certain environment variable so that now my prompt is just a $sign instead of this really, really long directory name. You don't have to do that. Now if I do hgdiff, what this does is it will tell me what I changed. So it just outputs to the screen what's called a diff, which shows that around line 49, I added a new line. There are pluses and minuses. There'll be minuses if I've deleted lines, and there'll be pluses for lines that I include. Okay, next I can do hgcommit, and what this will do is it pops up my default editor, which because I've set the environment variable editor to be Pico, will be Pico. So I type hgcommit. This is not connecting to some remote repository anywhere. This is only going to change something local to this particular Sage install. That it's committing it locally. And here you then enter in the first line a commit message. So I'll write my awesomely more verbose version of flatten. Whoops. Undo. Is there an undo? Whoa. Crud. Exit. Do not save. If you mess everything up, you can always do, if you exit the file without saving it, then it will not commit it because it sees an empty commit message. So I'll try again. So my awesome, much better flatten function. Boom. Okay, Control X, and now I'm going to save it. It gets saved to some random temporary file, and now it's been committed. Okay. Now if I look back at my kind of list of things to do, I typed diff to see what I had done. I typed commit. It's now committed. You could also, by the way, you could undo everything you had done before you commit by typing hgrevert --all if you wanted. Now here you could type hglog, and that will show us a log of all the changes, and it'll actually show 11,000 log entries fly by the screen very, very quickly if you don't pipe it into more. So here's what it does if you don't pipe it into more. It just sends to the standard output every single commit message to Sage ever, which is kind of long. So like 50,000 lines just flew by. But in Unix, what you can do is there's something called a pipe. What it does is it makes it so you can make the output of one command the input to another command. And here, more is a command that is a pager, so it will stop at the end of each page. So you'll notice the very top has a change set, which is the change that I just made. After that, you have the other 15,467 change sets in Sage. Okay? And now finally, you can do hg export tip, and that exports as a patch the change that you just made. Tip is the very last one that you made. You could also give hg export and a number, and I would export that particular change set. So there it is as a patch. Notice it has information about who did it, Math 480 student, and the message that I put there is given, plus the code changes themselves. Finally, if you want to put it in a file, you do that, file.patch. Okay? And that little arrow means the output of this, whatever this is, the output of this is supposed to go into that file. It's another Unix thing that you do. So hg, this little arrow thing, and a pipe. Okay, and again, you don't have to, I put that in this list right here, hg export tip into file.patch. So you do that, and now we have our file. pwd will tell you what directory you're in case you forgot, or you changed your prompt. That stands for print working directory. And now You want to get this patch file back. It's sitting on this remote computer. You can see it. How do you get it? One stupid way you could copy and paste, look at it and just copy and paste. But what if it's big, or what if that messes things up? I did set it up so that the home directories here are all browsable over the web by everybody. So if I go into my directory and just keep, go down to devel sage sage misc. I have to go all the way down to where that file was. Then I'll find the patch file, file.patch. There it is, look. And now I can click on that, and it's been saved to my computer. And there it is, local on my computer. And so your homework assignment, you'll submit the patch file and a little session that shows what you, that it works, like a little Sage session where you see that something happens. Then the grader, their challenge is to take your patch file and apply it to their copy of Sage. And I haven't showed you how to do that yet, but the way you do that is you do hg import file.patch. So if I do hg rollback and then hg revert -- all, that completely undoes what we just did. Flatten is now no longer changed. But if I do hg import flatten, let's see, file.patch, then it imports the patch. And now the file is changed again. So now you've seen every single step needed to create a patch, to get the patch as a file onto your own computer. And you also now see that by doing hg import, you can import somebody else's patch. And you can do this, time after time after time.
Does it automatically know what directory to find the patch?
Yes. Well, if you do hg import, basically, yeah. But you have to give the, you have to be in the same directory as the patch, or you have to give a path to the patch using dots.
Is there any way to save it to a different directory?
Yeah, you could just do hg export tip and /temp_a.patch. I just saved it to that directory, to /temp. You can save it wherever you want, as long as you have write permissions.
Directories above.
Sure, /do.patch. And you can also use mv to move a file. mv. Like you could do, yeah, copy, move. So, okay, and there we are.